She left me there, in the mud, laughing. And the worst part? My grandson was laughing too. I didn't fall, I was pushed. Not physically. No. Worse than that. I was pushed out of their lives. Pushed aside like I didn't matter. I remember the feeling of my knees hitting the wet earth, my palms sinking into the cold, thick mud. I remember their car pulling away. Danielle's eyes in the mirror. My grandson's phone tilted just slightly toward me. Filming. For who, for what, I sat there for a long time. Long enough for the cold to seep through my jeans. Long enough for the shame to settle into my bones. It wasn't just the mud that stuck to me. It was the realization that I didn't know these people at all. Let me know where you're listening from. I always love seeing how far these stories travel. And if this story speaks to you, share your thoughts below. Don't skip, because what happens at the end will surprise you more than the betrayal itself. I didn't scream. I didn't even cry at first. I just sat there, breathing in, out, watching the fog roll over the trees like a curtain dropping after the final act. Because that's what it felt like. An ending. But I wasn't ready for it to be over. I stood up, my hands trembling, my legs soaked, my heart heavier than it had ever been. I'd buried my husband. I'd worked 3 jobs to keep our house. I'd raised our son to be kind, strong, thoughtful, or so I thought. And now here I was, 61 years old, and discarded like an old coat. The road wasn't visible through the woods. I didn't even know which direction they'd gone, but I started walking. Every step squelched the mud pulling at my boots like it didn't want me to leave. And maybe part of me didn't want to either. Not yet. Because leaving that trail meant admitting what happened was real. That Danielle had orchestrated this whole thing. That she'd smiled at me the night before, spooned peach cobbler into my bowl, called me mom with that sugary sweetness, and planned to humiliate me in front of my own blood. I must have walked 3 miles before I saw the faint glint of a gas station sign. My feet hurt. My clothes were stained. My pride was gone. I remember the cashier staring at me like I was a ghost. She asked if I needed help. I didn't answer at first. Then I said, "A phone." Just that. One word. A phone. I called a cab. When I got home, the house was dark. Quiet. I peeled off my clothes in the laundry room and went straight to the shower. I didn't look in the mirror. I couldn't. I scrubbed my skin raw, but I couldn't wash away the feeling. That sticky, suffocating feeling of betrayal. Later that night, I found it. The video. My grandson had sent it to his friend who reposted it, labeled it Prank Gone Wrong Grandma Edition. It had over 4,000 likes, comments laughing, jokes, gifs. Someone said she looks like a swamp witch. I stared at the screen. Then I screamed. Not a sound of pain. Not at first. It was rage. Pure, deep, old rage. The kind I didn't know I had. I didn't sleep. I made tea, sat in the kitchen until dawn, my hands around the mug knuckles white. I didn't cry again. Not then. I was beyond tears. I was hollow, numb, but something started building inside me. Slow, quiet, a whisper of something I hadn't felt in years. Resolve. Because if they thought they'd broken me, if they thought I was done, they didn't know me at all. I was never the kind of woman who needed much. I didn't grow up with luxury or long vacations. I had love, though. Real steady love. My mother taught me how to stretch $1, and my father taught me how to keep a promise. I met James when I was 19. He was tall, quiet, wore the same boots until they fell apart, and when he looked at me, I felt seen. Not admired, not watched. Seen. We married young, and we stayed married until the day he died, right there in the living room, surrounded by the life we'd built brick by brick. We didn't have much, but we had enough. We raised Aaron in a little blue house on Hillcrest Drive. It had a crooked mailbox and a maple tree that dropped leaves big as dinner plates. Aaron was everything to us, our only child. I remember him running through the yard in his Batman cape catching fireflies in old peanut butter jars. He had this laugh wild unfiltered, and it used to make James tear up. He loved that boy more than anything. So did I. When James got sick, it was Aaron who sat beside him during those final nights, holding his hand, telling him stories about school sports life. He was 17 when we lost James. That kind of grief shapes a boy. But Aaron stayed good. Or, I thought he did. I worked nights after James passed. I was the assistant manager at a diner 2 towns over, wore white tennis shoes, and learned how to smile even when my feet bled. I kept that house. I paid the bills. And I never missed one of Aaron's games. Not one. I was the loudest one in the bleachers waving a poster that said, "Go, Nor 10." He always looked embarrassed, but he smiled every time. Then came college. He went on a scholarship, stayed close. He came home on weekends, helped with chores, fixed the leak in the kitchen sink when I couldn't afford a plumber. He still kissed my cheek when he left. Called me Ma, not Mom, just Ma. It was our thing. And then he met Danielle. She was polished, the kind of woman who never forgot to moisturize her elbows. From the start, she smiled too much, complimented too quickly, and never looked me in the eye for longer than 2 seconds. Still, I wanted to like her, needed to, because Aaron did. He lit up around her, nervous like a schoolboy. He said she was ambitious and sharp. I said she was pretty and well-spoken. And that was true. But something about her always felt rehearsed. When they got engaged, I offered to help with the wedding. She thanked me, but said it was already handled. I made a quilt for their bed. She thanked me, but placed it in the guest room. I baked pies for Thanksgiving. Danielle ordered a vegan dessert platter and quietly moved mine to the garage fridge. Small things. Easy to ignore, at first. After they married, Aaron changed. Slowly. At first, it was his schedule. Too busy to visit. Then his tone. Shorter, colder. Like every word he spoke to me cost him something. I thought maybe he was just tired, that he was adjusting. But then they stopped inviting me to holidays. Claimed they were traveling or trying something new this year. I spent Christmas Eve 3 years ago watching It's a Wonderful Life, alone with a tray of store-bought cookies. No call, no text, just silence. Still, I tried. I bought gifts for their anniversary, sent care packages, wrote cards to my grandson Daniel, named after Danielle's father. He was a sweet boy, curious, smart. He liked puzzles and marbles and called me Grandma. Every moment I got with him felt like a treasure I wasn't supposed to have. Because Danielle rationed them. I saw him maybe twice a month, sometimes just an hour, and always with her watching, listening, steering the conversations. I told myself it was just modern parenting, that maybe I was out of touch. But deep down, I knew. I knew I was being pushed out, slowly, subtly, like a chair being slid just slightly away from the table. But what broke me, what truly cracked the last piece of hope I had left, was Aaron. My boy, my Batman in a cape. He began parroting Danielle, word for word. He once told me we're trying to protect our energy, Ma. Boundaries are healthy. As if I was a toxin, a burden. As if I hadn't held him through chickenpox and his first heartbreak. As if I hadn't sold James's old watch to pay his tuition bill. So when Danielle called me one Thursday afternoon and said, "Let's take a girls' trip, just you, me, and Danny," I froze. She said it was her idea of bonding. Said she wanted to start over. She even laughed nervously like she was being vulnerable. And I believed her. God help me, I believed her. I packed a bag that night, put on my softest sweater, baked banana bread for the drive. I even brought old photo albums thinking we'd laugh, maybe cry, maybe remember what it meant to be a family. But now I know. Now I know the trip wasn't about reconnecting. It was about control, about performance, about humiliation. They didn't want to rebuild anything. They wanted to bury me. The first strange moment happened before we even pulled out of the driveway. Danielle kept checking her phone, not just scrolling, nervously watching like she was waiting for a signal. She called it coordinating a surprise for Danny. I didn't question it. I should have. But I didn't. Aaron came out to help load the bags. He gave me a quick hug, brief, almost forced. His hand didn't linger on my shoulder. No warmth. He looked tired, or maybe just distant. And when I said, "Take care of yourself," he only nodded, eyes on his wife. That nod cut deeper than he'll ever know. We started down the road, the three of us in Danielle's SUV. She drove like she always did, smooth, controlled, both hands on the wheel, eyes sharp. Daniel sat in the back, headphones and watching something on his tablet. He barely looked up. I tried to ask him questions, his school, his science project, but he gave me one-word answers. Danielle smiled into the mirror and said, "He's just in a mood. Don't take it personally." I smiled back, though my cheeks ached. There was already something in the air, like a window left cracked in winter. Coldness creeping in, silent and invisible. We stopped once for gas. Danielle didn't ask if I needed the restroom. Didn't ask if I was hungry. I offered her some banana bread. She said she was off sugar. Daniel declined, too. That bread sat in the passenger seat the whole ride, untouched. I held it like it was something sacred, something still mine. Hours passed. Trees thickened. Roads narrowed. Danielle said she'd found a hidden gem off a hiking app. I said I didn't know we were hiking. She said, "Just a short trail. Something easy. You'll love it." I didn't argue. Why would I? I wanted to believe her. I wanted this to be real. I wanted to feel like someone still saw me as more than a memory. We pulled into a gravel lot surrounded by tall pines. No other cars, no signs, just forest and silence. Daniel put his phone in his hoodie pocket and finally looked at me, just a flicker. His expression unreadable. Danielle handed me a water bottle and said, "Ready." She looked too eager, like a hostess on a reality show. I followed them. Step by step, the trail started wide, dry. Easy enough. But 20 minutes in the dirt grew soft, then slippery, then thick. It had rained days before, clearly. I stepped carefully, my boots sinking a little deeper each time. I paused to catch my breath. Danielle turned around, all smiles. "You okay back there?" I nodded. "Just need a second." Daniel held out his phone and pointed it at me. "Say hi, Grana." I smiled awkwardly. "Hi, sweetie." He didn't stop recording. Danielle laughed. She's such a trooper. Then just past a bend, the trail narrowed into a slope, steep, muddy, uneven. Danielle walked ahead. Daniel followed. I hesitated. "Is this still the path?" I asked. She didn't answer. Just kept walking. I tried to follow, but my foot slipped. I fell to one knee, hands flailing. Caught myself just in time. Mud streaked up my sleeve. Daniel laughed just a little, then lifted his phone again. Okay, let's turn back," I said, voice shaky. But Danielle looked back at me, calm, detached. "Just a little farther. You've got this." I looked at Daniel. His phone still pointed at me, still recording. I asked, "What's going on?" Danielle shrugged. "Just capturing memories." I said, "This isn't funny." And she said, "It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be enlightening." She turned then, walked forward. Daniel stayed back, smiling, except it wasn't a boy's smile. It was a replica, a performance. I saw Danielle's influence in it. Cold, sharp, practiced. And then they were gone. Their steps quickened. I shouted Danielle, but her name bounced off the trees with no reply. Then I heard the engine. Far off, faint, but moving, fast. They hadn't wandered off. They'd circled back to the car. I turned, slipped again, this time all the way down. Knees, elbows, palms splashed and sunk into the cold, wet ground. My breath caught in my chest. My heart pounded. I pulled myself up, mud dragging at every limb. When I reached the clearing, I was too late. The SUV was already at the far end of the lot. Danielle behind the wheel, Daniel in the back. His window rolled down just an inch. He lifted the phone. One more time. No wave, no goodbye. Just filming. And then they were gone. Gone. I stood there for a long time, mud soaking into my jeans, wind cutting through my coat. I watched the trees, the silence, the stillness. I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe they want me to disappear. Maybe they already think I have. I whispered why, but no one answered. The woods don't answer questions like that. I didn't scream. I didn't call the police. I didn't even wave my arms like someone desperate for rescue. Because I wasn't lost. Not really. I knew where I was. I knew who I was. But I also knew something had changed irrevocably. Something that couldn't be smoothed over with apologies or pretty cards or Daniel's scribbled birthday drawings. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a message. And I got it loud and clear. I sat down on a fallen log near the trailhead. My bones ached. My knees stung from the fall. My hands were caked in drying mud. I looked like a ghost of myself. And still, I sat. Because rage, real rage, the kind that settles in your chest and makes you question every warm memory you ever clung to, takes time to bloom. It doesn't scream. It doesn't flail. It whispers. And I could hear it, whispering now. I thought about the first time I met Danielle. She wore a lavender blouse and brought lemon bars she claimed were homemade. She complimented my garden, said my house smelled like cinnamon and pure comfort. She'd fooled me, completely, and that was the part I couldn't forgive. Not just the cruelty, but the performance, the play acting. For years she smiled as she pulled the rug from under my life, inch by inch, and I thanked her for it. By the time the cab arrived 2.5 hours later, I had stopped shaking. I was dry, dirty but calm. I gave the driver the address and didn't speak a word the entire ride. I watched the trees blur past the window. I thought about James, what he would have said. He would have been furious, protective, but he would have also reminded me who I was, and I could hear his voice now, plain and clear. You were never one to stay down, love. Get up, get even. When I got home, I did something strange. I took a shower, then I pulled out the storage bin from under my bed, the one filled with journals, old spiral notebooks from the dollar store, some dating back 20 years. I opened one from when Aaron was 10, read about the day he cried because his turtle died, read about the time he called me a hero for fixing his bike chain. Then I flipped to the back, blank pages. I picked up a pen, and I began to write. Not my feelings, not my pain. Details. Every small comment Danielle had made in the past 6 months. Every time Aaron canceled a plan. Every time Daniel seemed coached in what to say around me. I wrote down the day she had asked for my signature on what she claimed was a school permission slip. But now I remembered the paper had no school logo. I wrote down the odd comment Aaron made last Thanksgiving about streamlining family assets. It all came back. And I wrote like a woman possessed. This wasn't a journal. This was evidence. The next day, I drove to the bank. Quietly. I asked for a printout of my joint accounts with Aaron ones I'd opened years ago when he was first starting out. The manager looked hesitant. "Are you sure you want to close access?" he asked. I nodded. Yes. Immediately. I didn't cry. I didn't explain. I just signed the form. Then I made an appointment with a lawyer. I wore my best blazer. The one James always said made me look dangerously capable. I sat in the polished office across from a man in horn-rimmed glasses, and I laid it all out. Not as a sob story, as a case. I believe my daughter-in-law is manipulating my son, possibly committing fraud, and certainly attempting emotional abuse. He blinked. "Do you have proof I slid the folder across the table?" It wasn't much. Yet. But it was a start. That night, I went to Danielle's Instagram. She'd posted a reel of the trip. Just a glimpse. Roadside adventure with Grana, Schaff muddy fun, family laughs. It had a filter on it, one that made the trees look dreamy. My face look ridiculous. A joke. A setup. I clicked the comment section. Most were strangers laughing. A few were mutual acquaintances. One had commented, "You're bad." Danielle had replied with a winky face. I didn't comment. I saved the post. I saved everything. Because I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Not with just emotion. Danielle expected that. Expected me to fall apart, scream, beg, plead. No. That's not what she was going to get. She was going to get the storm she never saw coming. And it would start in silence. I didn't speak to Aaron or Danielle for 3 weeks. Not a text, not a call. And they didn't reach out either. That silence told me everything I needed to know. Not guilt, not worry, just absence. Emptiness where a family should be. But that silence gave me space. Space to dig, to remember, to prepare. It started with the signatures. That permission slip Danielle handed me back in March, I'd signed it without glasses, just trusting her. She said it was for a field trip. But when I asked the school about Daniel's trips, there was no record of one that month. Nothing even close. So what had I signed? I filed a records request with the help of my lawyer, and then I waited. While I waited, I watched. Danielle's online life was curated like a magazine, spread soft pastels, smiling selfies, faux candid family moments. But every now and then, something slipped through. A post about simplifying our legacy. A comment under a photo of Daniel in front of my old family piano, finally making space for what matters. The caption stung. That piano wasn't hers. That space wasn't hers. But slowly, she was claiming all of it. Aaron, for his part, remained a ghost. No calls, no visits. He stopped liking my Facebook posts. Even Daniel's digital trail had cooled, less video, more silence. I wondered what they'd told him. What lies had been fed to a child about the woman who once rocked him to sleep. But children remember more than we think. And so do mothers. I found the storage box of old photos, birthdays, first steps, Aaron in my arms, Daniel in his. I began scanning them quietly, methodically. Not to post, just to remind myself of what was real, what couldn't be faked. Then came the twist. My lawyer called me on a Tuesday morning, his voice low, serious. "Mrs. Brennan, that form you signed, it was a change of beneficiary form. Danielle listed herself as the sole recipient of your life insurance policy." I went still. "Is that legal?" I asked. "Only if signed willingly, and with full understanding. But we have a case for fraud." I didn't say anything for a while. I just looked out the window. The same maple tree Aaron used to climb. Its branches were thinner now, like bones. So she had tried to erase me. Not kill me, no. I don't think it was ever that dark, but financially, emotionally, legally. She wanted the comfort of my legacy without the inconvenience of me. And Aaron had let her, or worse, helped her. That night I baked. I hadn't in weeks. Something simple, apple crisp. It made the house smell warm like old love, like memories. I took a small plate to the table, poured myself a cup of tea, and opened a notebook. I wrote only 4 words at the top of the page, what she thinks I'll do. And then beneath it, I wrote, beg, cry, apologize, disappear. I underlined that last one 3 times. Danielle thought she knew me, thought she could predict every move. But that's where she made her first real mistake. I wasn't the same woman who'd welcomed her with pie and open arms. I wasn't the same woman who stood in the rain watching her drive away. I was something else now. Something she'd helped create. A storm. It started small. I canceled the monthly gift I'd been depositing into Daniel's college savings account. Quietly. I didn't explain, just stopped. Then I drafted a letter, one that looked like a birthday card, but inside was a notice. Effective immediately, the trust fund has been suspended pending review. Further action will follow. I sent it to their house addressed to Danielle. 2 days later, she showed up at my door, unannounced, uninvited, still smiling. "Hi," she said as if we were old friends. "Thought I'd drop by. See how you're feeling." I didn't invite her in. I didn't even offer her tea. I just said, "You're not welcome here, Danielle." Her smile flickered. I think we got off on the wrong foot. "No," I said. "You got caught stepping on the wrong person." She folded her arms. "Look, if this is about that silly hike," I leaned in quiet, steady. "I know about the insurance. I know about the account changes. And I know what you've been doing with Aaron's passwords." Her face drained. No smile now. "I suggest you talk to your lawyer," I added, "because mine is already building a file." She didn't say goodbye. Just turned and walked back to her car. Head down, shoulders stiff, and for the first time in years, I felt powerful, not vengeful, not cruel, just awake. The silence that followed Danielle's visit was a different kind of quiet, tense, watchful waiting, like the stillness right before a storm breaks. I knew she'd go home and spin it, twist my words, cry into Aaron's chest, and pretend to be the wounded one. That was her gift, making herself the victim of consequences she'd earned. But this time, I had facts, I had documents, I had time on my side. 3 days passed before Aaron called. I didn't answer. Let it ring. He left a voicemail, his voice strained, false concern bleeding through. "Ma, Danielle said there's been some confusion. Can we talk confusion?" That's what he called betrayal now. I didn't respond, not out of spite, but strategy. Let them stew. Let them guess. Then came the real hit. Danielle's name appeared in a community Facebook group I'd followed for years. Someone had posted a warning, beware of fake charity solicitations. Got a call today from Family Care Wellness, a new nonprofit asking for donations. The number traced back to a private residence. A quick search showed the registration name on the charity, Danielle Brennan. I printed it, saved it. That same week, my lawyer found more. Danielle had been funneling small amounts from Aaron's paycheck into a consulting fund she controlled, likely without his full awareness. And when I saw the totals, nearly $14,000 over 2 years, I didn't feel shock. Just clarity, cold, hard clarity. This wasn't just emotional sabotage. This was a woman slowly draining every safety net she could find. And my son, my poor blind son, was letting her. So I moved faster. I filed the formal complaint with the insurance company, flagged the beneficiary change, opened an audit on the trust fund, initiated a cease and desist against Family Care Wellness. Quiet, Legal, professional, no tears, no fights. A week later, I got a call from Aaron's HR department. They wanted to confirm that I hadn't authorized recent changes to my co-signatory rights on a company-sponsored family fund. I hadn't, but Danielle had. My voice didn't shake when I said, "That's fraudulent." They thanked me and hung up, and then things started to unravel for her. The fund froze. Their joint account flagged. The IRS was notified. I didn't need to accuse her in public. I just needed to turn on the lights and let her shadows speak for themselves. I heard from Aaron again. This time, 5 missed calls. A text that read, "We need to talk. Please." Still, I waited, because I wasn't done yet. 2 more letters went out, one to the local paper with documents attached, anonymous, the other to Daniel's school principal. A polite inquiry. Is there a policy on parents using student events for social media monetization? I knew Danielle had filmed school pickups, added sponsor tags, hashtags, affiliate links. She always called herself a momfluencer. But now her little empire had cracks, and all of it was still silent. Until Daniel called. It was a short message. Just 5 words. "Are you mad at me?" My heart broke. Because none of this was his fault. He was a boy caught in a play he didn't audition for. A character written by someone else. I called him back. "Sweetheart," I said. "I'm not mad. I'm just sad." He was quiet. Then he whispered, "Mom said you don't like us. That nearly crushed me." I bit my lip until it hurt. "I love you," I said. "I will always love you. But sometimes, grown-ups make mistakes, big ones, and when they do, we have to make it right." He didn't say anything more. Just sighed. The kind of sigh that didn't belong to a child. The kind that sounded too much like Aaron's. That broke me in a way no document ever could. But I didn't let that sadness steer me off course. Because the next day, Danielle's world cracked wide open. The nonprofit account was frozen. A formal audit began. Her bank flagged suspicious transfers, and her influencer profile, it got reported. Multiple violations, unauthorized video of a minor deceptive monetization use of falsified sponsor tags. She lost access within 48 hours. She tried to call me. 5 times. 6. Then, Aaron came to the house. He stood at the door, eyes bloodshot, holding a manila envelope. "I need to talk," he said. I let him in. I didn't hug him. I didn't smile. He sat on the same couch where he once opened Christmas presents, where James used to read the Sunday paper. Now he looked like a stranger in his own memories. "She lied to me," he said. I didn't answer. "She said you signed everything, that you wanted to step back, that you were tired, that you didn't want the pressure." I nodded slowly. "And you believed that he closed his eyes." I didn't want to believe the alternative. The envelope shook in his hands. "What's in there?" I asked. He opened it. Documents, bank statements, account transfers, a copy of the form I'd supposedly signed. Danielle's handwriting. Clear as day. Over mine. "Forged." He whispered, "She forged it." And for the first time in weeks, I felt something like peace. Not because it was over, but because now, it could finally begin. Aaron didn't cry. I think part of him wanted to. But he sat there, silent, trembling, folding and unfolding the corners of that envelope like a nervous boy. I watched him from across the room, the same boy I used to kiss on the forehead before school. The same boy who held my hand when James was lowered into the ground. And now, here he was, a grown man unraveling in front of me years too late. "I'm sorry," he said. Barely a whisper. I wanted those words to mean something. I wanted them to rewind time, stitch back everything that had been cut loose. But apologies are heavy. especially when they come after silence, after complicity. You let her do it, I said. My voice didn't shake. It didn't rise. You let her turn you into a stranger. He looked down. I didn't see it. No, I said. You didn't want to. He nodded once, a small, broken motion. She told me you were unstable, he said quietly. Said you were losing track of things, that you forgot birthdays, repeated stories, misplaced money. She kept a journal of examples. She'd read them to me. I believed her. My hands clenched around the arms of my chair. That word, unstable. That lie. Danielle hadn't just wanted me gone. She wanted me discredited, forgotten, dismissed as nothing but an aging burden. I kept every receipt I said. I documented every transaction. I've been sharper than ever. What she gave you was a script, and you swallowed it whole. He winced. She said Daniel would be safer with distance, he whispered. That was when I felt the anger rise again. From me, I asked. From the woman who raised you without a single black mark, who gave you everything I had and then some. He had no answer. Did you ever once come to me, Aaron? I said. Did you ever ask me if I was okay, if I felt left behind? Or did you just accept her version of the story because it was easier? He looked up, eyes glistening. I'm sorry. I stood up, not in rage, not in theatrics, just to put space between us. Your apology isn't a key to my front door, I said. It's a starting point. Nothing more. He nodded again. Slower this time. I filed for divorce, he said. That stopped me. She tried to blame me. Said I was weak. That everything I had was because of her guidance. But when I found the forged forms, the accounts she opened, the emails she sent under my name, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I sat back down, quietly. A long pause passed between us. I'm not here to fix things overnight, he said. I know it'll take time. I just wanted you to hear it from me before the fallout begins. I tilted my head. The fallout, she's being investigated. I reported everything to her former sponsors, her business partners, the IRS. She doesn't know yet, but the avalanche is coming. I felt no joy in it, no satisfaction, just a strange, aching silence, like watching a house fall that you once helped build. He stayed another 10 minutes. We talked about Daniel, how he was asking questions, how confused he'd become. I told Aaron I needed time and space, and he respected that. When he left, he kissed my cheek like he used to. A small gesture, tentative, familiar. That night, I sat in my library and opened the locked box in the back of the drawer. Inside was my revised will. The original version had given Danielle and Aaron shared executor rights. That was long gone now. The new version named Daniel as sole heir contingent on him turning 25, finishing college, and maintaining a clean legal record. I didn't want to punish him for his parents' sins, but I wouldn't allow history to repeat. There was one more change I made that night. A sealed letter addressed to Daniel to be read on his 18th birthday. I began writing it at midnight. I told him everything: the love, the loss, the betrayal, the survival. I told him who I was, not what someone else said I was, and I ended it with a promise. If you ever find yourself lost wondering what's true, come find me. I'll still be here, still loving you. The next day, the story broke. A local blog picked up the nonprofit scandal. Screenshots of Danielle's false sponsorships leaked. One of her former friends shared the infamous video of me in the woods and added commentary. She faked the whole thing, told her son it was for a project. Turns out, it was just for laughs. This is what narcissism looks like. The internet turned on her overnight. The reel that once got 4,000 likes deleted, but not before it was archived, reposted, and dissected. Comments flooded in. Sympathy for me, outrage at her, and then the final call, a voicemail from Danielle. "Congratulations," she said, her voice venom-laced and bitter. "You win. I hope you're proud of yourself." No apology, no remorse, just spite. I deleted it, because I had already won the moment I chose to stop playing her game. The days that followed were still. Not in a peaceful way, but in the way a forest quiets after a fire, ashes drifting through the air, smoldering trunks where trees used to stand. My phone rang less. My doorbell stayed silent. No more surprise visits. No more carefully worded texts from Danielle or her filtered smile on my screen. She was gone from my life, but not erased. People like her never vanish completely. They just slink into new circles wearing different faces. But I wasn't watching her anymore. I didn't need to. I had other work to do. I started by cleaning. Not spring cleaning, not rearranging throw pillows. Real cleaning. The kind that makes your knees ache and your back sore. I pulled out every box in the attic, sorted years of forgotten things. Old report cards, dried flower bouquets from anniversaries past James's faded flannel shirts. I cried when I found the one with a rip under the sleeve. He always meant to sew it. Never did. I let the grief come when it needed to. Not just grief for James, but for the family I thought I had. For the years I spent holding my breath around Danielle. For the holidays that felt like tests. For every kind word I offered that was later mocked in private. I didn't drown in that grief. I let it wash over me, then recede. Healing isn't loud. It's not dramatic. It's a quiet thing. A choice you make every day. I planted new flowers in the front yard. Not the ones Danielle liked, the hydrangeas she said made the house look too old-fashioned. I planted tulips. Bright, unapologetic, stubborn in their return. I sat on the porch with tea in the mornings, watching neighbors pass. Some waved, some looked away. The ones who looked away had seen the video. They didn't know what to say. I didn't mind. Let them look. Let them wonder. Then one morning, a letter came. A plain envelope. No return address. Inside was a handwritten note. I didn't understand. I thought it was funny. I was wrong. I'm sorry. No signature. But I knew the handwriting. Daniel's. He was only 13, but it was there in every loop and line: remorse, fear, confusion. A child still trying to make sense of adult games. I sat on the porch holding that letter until the sun rose high. That afternoon, I wrote back. "Dear Daniel, thank you. You are not responsible for the choices others made. You are brave to write this, and I am proud of you. Always. My door is open when you're ready." I didn't send it right away. I waited a day, then another. Then I walked to the mailbox with steady hands and dropped it in. It was a small thing, but it felt like a seed being planted. Aaron came by 2 weeks later. He brought fresh bread from the bakery down the street, the same one we used to visit when he was in middle school. He didn't ask to stay long, just sat with me on the porch. We didn't talk about Danielle. We didn't need to. "I'm trying," he said. "To be better. To be me again." I nodded. "It takes time. I know I failed you." I looked at him, the lines around his eyes deeper now, the boy inside him flickering beneath the man. "You didn't fail me," I said. "You just forgot me, and you forgot yourself. But now you remember." He reached out. I took his hand. For a moment, it was quiet again. But this time, not the stillness of loss, something gentler. The weeks turned to months. The legal battles faded behind paperwork and cold letters. Danielle disappeared from our town. I heard rumors she moved to Arizona, changed her last name, tried to rebrand herself as a resilience coach. Let her start again. I didn't wish her harm. But I didn't wish her well either. I wished her gone. And she was. Daniel started coming over again. At first, just Saturdays. Then more. We cooked. We read. We laughed. He liked history now. Loved maps. Asked questions about his grandfather. I told him stories, ones I'd never had the chance to share. He never asked directly about the trail, the mud, the video. But I saw it in his eyes. The guilt. The memory. And so one evening, I took him there. We drove in silence. Parked in the same gravel lot. The trail had changed, less overgrown, drier. We walked together until we reached the bend where I'd fallen, where he'd filmed me. I sat on the same log. He sat beside me. "This is the spot, isn't it?" he asked. I nodded. "Yes. I'm sorry, Grandma." I took his hand. "I forgive you." And I did. Because he was a boy then. Because forgiveness is not about erasing pain, but refusing to carry it forever. We left that trail together. No laughter, no cameras, just footsteps and peace. The seasons changed slowly after that. Spring melted into summer, and with it the last remnants of Danielle's shadow. People stopped whispering. The neighborhood returned to its rhythms, bikes in the driveway, sprinklers turning the sidewalks slick, the sound of lawnmowers humming like distant bees. Life had resumed as life always does. But inside me, something different had taken root. Daniel kept coming around. His visits became rituals. He'd help me with groceries, ask me how my garden was doing. We'd bake together banana bread apple tart, sometimes just simple biscuits. He asked for stories about James, stories about his dad as a boy. I told them all. I told them with detail, with love. I needed him to see where he came from, not just the mess, but the good that came before it. One Saturday, he asked, "Was Mom always like that?" I hesitated. "She was different at first," I said. Or maybe I wanted to believe she was. Some people wear masks so well they forget they're wearing them. He looked down his fingers, picking at the edge of a napkin. "Do you think I'll be like her?" I reached over, cupped his chin so he would meet my eyes. "No," I said. "You already aren't. You see people. You feel things. That's what keeps us human." He nodded, but I saw the fear linger. A few weeks later, Aaron came by alone. He'd lost weight, carried a tiredness in his posture that I hadn't seen since James died. He brought a small box, shoebox-sized, taped shut. "I found something," he said, "in Danielle's old office, after the divorce was final." I opened it slowly. Inside were scraps, notes, screenshots, copies of emails, some between Danielle and companies she'd lied to. Others were about me. One caught my eye. Subject: re-strategy. Final phase. "Once she's out of the picture, we can consolidate the estate, fold the assets into Daniel's name, and I can restructure the trust. She's emotionally unstable. No one will question it if she stops showing up." Aaron watched me read it. His hands trembled. I didn't know he whispered. She was playing me too. I believed him, but I also knew ignorance is still a choice. He could have asked questions. He could have seen the signs. But love makes fools of all of us. "What will you do with this?" I asked. "I already sent copies to your lawyer. And the investigator?" "Good." He stood there for a moment, unsure of whether to sit or go. Finally, he asked, "Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me?" I looked at him, this man who had been my baby, my pride, my heartbreak. "I don't know," I said, "but I'm trying. That has to count for something." He nodded and left quietly. That night, I walked through the house alone, room to room, each space carrying echoes, some warm, some cold. I ended up in the attic, pulled down another box. This one had James's journals. He didn't write often, but when he did, it was honest. Raw. I found one entry dated 5 years before his passing. "I worry about Aaron. He doesn't see people clearly. He wants to believe everyone has a good heart. I hope that doesn't break him one day. It nearly did James. It nearly did. But maybe, just maybe, that break was what let the truth in. The next morning, Daniel arrived early. "Want to go somewhere?" he asked. I smiled. "Where?" He held up an old photo. Us at the beach years ago. "Let's go back," he said. "I want to remember the good stuff." We drove for 3 hours. The beach was just as we'd left it, soft sand, cool breeze, children running past with plastic shovels. We walked along the shore, shoes off, feet sinking gently into the earth. Daniel found a shell, handed it to me. "For your collection." I'd never had a shell collection, but maybe now I would start one. We sat down together, the ocean in front of us. "You know what I hate?" he said. "What, that she tried to erase you?" I looked at him. "She failed." He nodded. "You're stronger than anyone I know." I took his hand. "No," I said. "I'm just still standing. That's not strength. That's choice." We stayed there until the sun dipped low, casting gold across the waves. For the first time in what felt like years, I didn't feel like I was surviving. I felt like I was living. The wind picked up. The tide rolled in. And in that moment, I knew the past had happened. The scars were real, but so was this. This boy beside me, this peace, this new chapter. The first time I walked through the house after everything had settled, I noticed the silence wasn't so loud anymore. It wasn't empty. It was calm. I stood in the hallway just outside Aaron's old room, and for the first time in years, I didn't expect Danielle's voice behind me. No passive-aggressive questions, no syrupy sweet judgment. Just quiet. Real quiet. I walked in and opened the curtains. Light flooded the room, hitting the old bookshelf he used to line with comic books. Most were gone now, but one. The Flash Number 217 remained tucked behind a stack of old papers. I smiled. I left it where it was. The kitchen was next. The counter still had the faint white scratch from where Daniel spilled vinegar and tried to scrub it with a scouring pad. I remember Danielle yelling at him for ruining the finish. I remember slipping him a wink behind her back and whispering, "It's just a countertop, baby." He'd smiled, a real smile, the kind that never appeared when she was in the room. Everything was smaller now, not physically, but in energy. Danielle's voice had filled spaces, made the walls shrink with tension. With her gone, the house felt like it had expanded somehow, as if it were breathing again. I repainted the living room. Nothing drastic, just a soft almond cream, something warmer. I bought a new rug. Donated the throw pillows Danielle once insisted were modern. I even took down the canvas print she gave me one Christmas, an abstract swirl of gray and beige that always made the room feel cold. I replaced it with a framed photo of the beach. Daniel and me. That day, our day. Each change I made was small, intentional, a quiet reclaiming. One morning, Daniel asked if he could bring a friend over. "He wants to see the garden," he said. I agreed, of course. But the request hit me harder than I expected. I realized how long it had been since anyone saw this place as safe. Welcoming, not a battlefield of whispered judgments. They came on a Saturday. 2 boys, 12 and 13, full of awkward jokes and loud laughter. They wandered the yard, marveled at the size of the zucchini, asked if the birdhouse really had tenants. It did. A robin had nested again this year. Watching them carefree, curious, I felt something shift. This was what healing looked like. Not fireworks, not grand gestures. Just a boy and his friend admiring cucumbers in the sun. That night, Aaron called. "Can I stop by tomorrow?" he asked. I hesitated, but then said yes. He arrived with a small brown bag. Inside was a lemon pie. Not store-bought, not from a bakery, made by hand. the crust slightly uneven, the filling a little too tart, but it was his, not Danielle's. We sat on the porch again. 2 cups of tea, 1 slice of pie split between us. "She's trying to appeal the divorce ruling," he said. I nodded. "She won't get far." "No," he agreed. "She's already trying to position herself as the victim. That I abandoned her. That you poisoned our family." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The truth had already rooted itself in the soil. It didn't need defending anymore. "I've been seeing a counselor," he added after a pause, "trying to understand how I let all of this happen, how I couldn't see her for what she was." "That's a start," I said. He nodded. Then quietly, "I miss Dad." "So did I. Every day." But I didn't say that. Instead, I reached over and touched his hand. "He'd be proud of you," I said. "Not for what happened, but for waking up." Aaron's eyes welled up. "It took losing everything. Sometimes, that's the only way people learn." He didn't argue. We sat there until the porch light clicked on. Automatic now. Aaron installed the timer months ago. Before all of this. Before he remembered who I was. Later that night, I opened a small drawer in the hallway and took out the envelope labeled "Final Will, Revised." I removed the last page and added a note. "Executor, Daniel Brennan, provisional. To be reassessed on his 25th birthday. Subject to fulfillment of moral, legal, and personal integrity criteria." It was a cold phrase. Legal, distant, but I meant it with love. The kind of love that wants to protect even when you're gone. I added a second note just below. To be opened with guidance and context. Speak with Aaron Brennan first. That one was warmer. I resealed the envelope. The next day, Daniel came over with a notebook in hand. "I'm writing about you for school," he said. "A paper. They asked us to describe someone who taught us something big." I blinked back tears. "What did I teach you?" I asked. He grinned. "How not to fall apart, even when people try to break you." I pulled him into a hug. We didn't say much else that day. But we didn't need to. Some truths don't need repeating. They just need living. The first time I got a letter from Danielle after everything blew over it was handwritten. Sloppy. Like she'd scribbled it during a breakdown or between legal meetings. I almost didn't open it. I stared at the envelope for a full minute, weighing it in my hands like it might explode. When I finally tore it open, I read the first line. "I never wanted to hurt you," and stopped right there. I folded it shut and threw it in the fireplace. Some things don't deserve oxygen. That same day, Daniel came by after school, dusty from track practice. His shoes muddy, his face glowing with the kind of energy only kids have when they know they're safe. He plopped onto the couch without asking, flipped through the TV guide like he owned the place and asked, "What's for dinner?" I smiled. "You mean, what are we making?" He grinned. "Okay, chef, let's go." We cooked together, chopping onions and browning meat, and he told me about his English teacher, about a girl named Elise who beat him at chess and how he kind of liked that. We sat at the kitchen table like it was the most normal thing in the world, like the years of separation had never happened. After dinner, he asked if we could go through one of the old photo albums. I pulled one from the shelf, thick navy blue, peeling at the corners. Inside were photos from the beach birthdays, James in his workshop, Aaron with scraped knees and a crooked smile. Daniel leaned in, pointing at pictures and asking questions. He paused on one, me and James dancing in the living room. "You look happy," he said. I was. "Were you scared when he died?" "Yes." But I wasn't alone. Not at first. He nodded like he was adding something to his internal archive. Then he looked at me, eyes serious. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Did you ever love Mom?" I sat back in my chair. The question didn't surprise me. I'd been waiting for it. I wanted to, I said. I tried. For a long time, I thought love meant forgiving everything. But love isn't blind. It sees the truth. And the truth is, no, I didn't love who she became. Daniel looked down. I think I get it. You don't have to choose sides, I added. You never did. But you can choose truth. You can choose kindness. He nodded slowly. I think I've already started. That night he stayed over. We watched an old black and white movie, shared a bowl of popcorn, and when he drifted off on the couch, I covered him with a blanket and kissed the top of his head. In the quiet, I opened my laptop. There was an email from Erin. Subject update on her appeal. I read through the legal jargon. The appeal had been denied. Danielle's attempts to overturn the divorce ruling and reclaim assets had failed. The court found her behavior calculated and malicious. Her influence officially severed. No more shared accounts. No more rights to Erin's estate. No more reach. It was over. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I was still holding. A week later, Daniel handed me an envelope of his own. For you, he said. Early birthday gift. Inside was a drawing charcoal on thick paper. It was me sitting on the porch, tea in hand, eyes out toward the garden. Every line was full of intention. He'd captured my hair, my hands, even the soft crease near my mouth from years of worry and laughter. At the bottom, in small letters, he wrote, "Still standing." I held the paper close to my chest. It's beautiful. You are, he said. That night, I framed the drawing and hung it in the hallway, right between the beach photo and Erin's old comic. Each piece told a story, a history not erased, but rewritten. I wrote in my journal later that evening, forgiveness isn't surrender. It's the final gate between pain and peace. Today, I walked through it. I'd thought closure would feel like revenge, like power. But it didn't. It felt like release, like letting go of a weight I had carried for too long. Danielle's name didn't echo in my head anymore. Her voice no longer haunted the corners of my house. I had room again for joy, for memory, for Daniel's laughter filling the halls. And when I sat in the garden the next morning, hands in the soil, I realized something simple and whole. I wasn't broken. I'd never been. I'd just been bruised. But bruises heal. It was late September when Daniel asked if he could help plant the fall bulbs. He wore gloves 2 sizes too big and a hoodie 3 sizes too small, but he crouched next to me like a boy on a mission. We dug in silence at first. The earth was soft from recent rain, rich and ready. Every time I passed him a bulb, he'd nod solemnly, tuck it into the hole, like it was something sacred. I watched him, my grandson, this boy who had once watched me from the back seat of a car with a camera in his hand, and no real understanding of what he was part of. That boy was growing up. Fast. You know, he said after a while, wiping his forehead with a muddy glove, every time I'm here it feels like real life. I looked at him. What do you mean? At Mom's, everything was like a stage. We couldn't talk about real stuff unless she said it was okay. If I was sad, she said, don't bring the energy down. If I asked about you, she changed the subject. But here I can breathe. I didn't respond at first. I just touched his shoulder. You can always breathe here, I said. He smiled, then picked up another bulb. Later, we had soup and grilled cheese, his favorite. After dinner, he pulled a worn notebook from his backpack. I've been writing stuff down. You know, for me, or maybe for later. Like a journal, I asked. Sort of. More like memories, things I don't want to forget. He flipped to a page and read aloud. The day Grandma showed me how to plant tulips, she said, "This is a promise to spring." I didn't get it at first, but now I think she meant that good things take time, and sometimes they bloom when you're not looking. I swallowed hard. That's beautiful, I said. He shrugged. You say stuff like that all the time. You just don't notice. We laughed. It felt good. The next morning, Aaron stopped by. He looked better, lighter, like a man rebuilding something from the inside out. He handed me a small box. What's this? I asked. Just something I found. In Dad's things. I thought you should have it. Inside was a cassette tape, labeled in James's handwriting for M, just in case. I didn't play it immediately. I waited until that night. After Daniel left after the dishes were washed after the garden lights flicked on. I sat in the library, popped the tape into an old player I hadn't touched in years, and pressed play. James's voice filled the room soft and steady. Hey, love. If you're hearing this, I guess I didn't make it. First off, don't cry. You always hated crying. You said it made your nose itch. I smiled through the tears anyway. I just wanted to say thank you. For the years, the love, the laughter. For Aaron. And if you're alone now, I know you're not really. You were always the strongest one. You were the roots. I was just lucky enough to lean against you. There was a pause, a soft exhale. If Aaron forgets, remind him. If he loses his way, guide him. If he chooses someone who tries to dim your light, stand tall anyway. Because you, my darling, were born to shine. The tape clicked to a stop. I sat there a long time, holding the player, holding that moment. Then I stood up and went to my bedroom. I pulled out the final drawer of the chest where I'd kept James's letters, photos, trinkets. I added the cassette to the collection. Not as a goodbye, as a reminder. Aaron came by the next day and helped me fix a leak in the basement. When he finished, I handed him a folder, copies of the updated will instructions for when the time came, and a note at the top. You are forgiven. Not forgotten. There's work still to do. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I'll make it right, Ma. All of it. Start by showing up, I said. Every day, especially for Daniel. He nodded again. Firmer this time. Daniel came by later that week and handed me a flyer. Open mic night, youth writers. You're going? I asked. He blushed. I might read something. Something about you. I smiled. I'll be there. The night of the event, I sat in the second row. He took the stage in a too big sweater, his voice trembling at first. But then, he spoke. My Grandma taught me that strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it stands in mud and refuses to fall. Sometimes it says nothing, but remembers everything. And when the world tries to erase you, it plants a tulip and calls it hope. The room fell silent, and then came the applause. Thunderous, honest, real. Afterward, he ran to me and wrapped his arms around my waist. I was scared, he said. You were brilliant, I whispered. The rest of the night blurred, hugs, smiles, warmth. And when I got home, I sat on the porch under the stars and closed my eyes. The hurt was still there, but so was the healing. They were learning to live beside each other, and I was learning to let them. I went back to the trail one last time. The same path, the same bend, the same tangle of trees reaching out like old fingers from both sides. Only this time, it was dry. Peaceful. No storm clouds, no mud, no laughter echoing in my memory. Just a quiet, worn path beneath my feet, and a sky so blue, it looked like it had been painted just for me. I didn't bring anyone with me. Not Daniel, not Aaron, not even a phone. I needed this moment for myself. Closure wasn't something someone else could give me. It wasn't in a letter or a court ruling. It wasn't in forgiveness or confrontation. It lived here, in the steps I took back to the very place they'd left me, the place they thought would break me. But I didn't come back to relive it. I came back to reclaim it. I stopped at the same spot I'd fallen, where the mud had sucked at my knees and my dignity. I looked down. The ground was solid now, covered in leaves dappled with sunlight. Nothing dangerous, nothing cruel, just earth doing what it always does. Healing. I sat down on that same log, my back straighter now, my shoulders square. I closed my eyes and breathed. Then I spoke. Not to Danielle, not to Aaron, to the part of me that had stayed behind here, the part that had cried and whispered, why, into the silence. I see you, I said softly. I forgive you for not running sooner. I forgive you for believing their love was the only love you'd ever have. And I promise you, this will not be the place where our story ends. I sat there for nearly an hour, watching the breeze lift the leaves, listening to the birds. And then I stood. I left a small stone on the log before I walked away. Nothing grand, just a marker. Something to say I was here. I survived. Back home, I made tea. Daniel was coming by later to help me move some boxes. He didn't know it yet, but I was planning to surprise him with a gift, an old leather journal I'd kept since before he was born. I'd copied pages for him, added new ones, blank ones, for his own thoughts, his own stories. Aaron would come by that weekend. He'd help paint the back shed. We'd eat on the porch, and maybe, just maybe, talk about James. I had neighbors now who smiled when they passed, friends from church who invited me to potlucks again. And every time I told them yes, it was another piece of my life reclaimed. Danielle never reached out again. Her last email was never answered. Her story ended in silence, just as it should. But mine kept going. The garden bloomed that spring. Tulips, yes, but also daffodils, lilies, and a single wild rose that grew near the fence, uninvited, bold, and defiantly beautiful. Daniel called it Grandma's rose, said it looked like me. I laughed, touched its petals, thought about the trail, the video, the betrayal, and I said to him, she left me in the mud. He looked up, but I didn't stay there. He nodded. You built something better. No, I said. I remembered what I already had. That night, as the stars came out, I sat in the library and picked up my pen. The last line in my journal read, I was not erased. I was rewritten. And that, I think, is how all storms end. Not with thunder, but with sunlight breaking through the trees.